Good day, mech warriors! On this channel, we've mostly been looking at mechs, but I think it's time that we reviewed some often overlooked vehicles that can still prove to be a deadly threat to mechs. Today, we're looking at some of the best vehicles you can buy for under 500 battle value. These vehicles are so incredibly cheap that you can easily take a lance of them for the cost of a decent medium mech. And in some cases, these are so cheap that you can take 2 or 3 lances of them for the cost of a single light mech, while fulfilling largely the same purpose. First up, let's look at one of my favorite light tanks. This is the Krueger combat car. It's ultra basic, 2 medium lasers in a turret, 10 plus armor on every location with 15 on the front, and a very cheap cost of 336 battle value. This is a unit that I have taken a couple of lances of in a mercenary company, and they performed so incredibly well. If all you're looking for is a cheap tank to get 4 TMM and distract the enemy while blasting them with a couple of medium lasers, look no further, the Krueger has you covered. On top of being very cheap, it also has a great quirk. Power reverse allows it to move backwards as fast as it moves forwards, so it never has to turn around. It can just either back up or drive straight ahead. Next, we'll look at the humble flatbed truck. This is basically a Toyota Tacoma that has had a couple of armor plates strapped to it and weapons placed on it. Of all of these, my favorite is probably the Flatbed LRM truck. If you want a cheap indirect fire LRM option, the flatbed truck is about as cheap as it gets. It is reasonably mobile with 5/8 wheeled movement and enough armor to take 1 SRM shot to any location without going internal and dying. Now, if you want something cheap to carry some cargo in, we have the armored flatbed truck with 10 armor on each side. This thing will get your cargo where it needs to go. Speaking of moving around cargo, we have a couple of troop carriers here. The heavy tracked APC, both the standard version with 2 machine guns and the upgraded version with 1 LRM-5 strapped to it. This has a much lower capacity for troops, but 3 tons is probably all you need if you're just bringing 1 squad. With tracked movement, it is a little bit tougher for this to get motive crit out, and with 20 armor on the front, it can take a couple PPC shots before going internal. If you're just looking for a very cheap troop carrier, 200 battle value gets you the heavy tracked APC. This is a pretty solid investment if you want to bring a big swarm of infantry to the front lines. But maybe while bringing that infantry to the front lines, you want to burn some people alive. Well, we have for you the Ignis infantry support tank. This is an incredible vehicle. For 463 battle value, you get a disgusting armor brick on a 4/6 tracked movement profile that is here to commit many war crimes. The thing that mainly slows this vehicle down is that its flamers are mounted in the left and right sides, which is kind of a problem. However, I will note that this vehicle can take coolant ammo instead of vehicle flamer ammo, which will allow it to roast infantry with one side, protecting your rear line tanks or mechs, and fire off some coolant with the other side, helping to cool your hot LRM boats. For example, the Archer. It does have a modest troop capacity of 1 ton, which allows it to bring some supporting infantry along with it. But honestly, the main reason that I would be taking this vehicle is for the sheer ridiculous amount of armor that it brings. It is able to drive onto an objective and kind of just stay there. Your enemy can choose to ignore it, but it is not going to go away until you do a significant amount of damage to it. Fulfilling a similar role to the Krueger Scout car, costing about 40 battle value less, and carrying more concentrated armor due to a lack of a turret, the wheeled scout car is pretty solid for what you get. Medium laser is front mounted, so no turret, no 360 arc, and if you're bringing it in campaign, you cannot power reverse either, but it does have a little bit of cargo space, which is nice, and overall is much harder to bring down, able to take a medium laser and PPC to any location except the rear and still keep fighting. Keep in mind though that taking more than 2 or 3 shots with a light vehicle like this, especially a wheeled one, is likely to result in being immobilized, which is one reason why I prefer the Krueger. The turret gives it a lot of nice flexibility even if it gets immobilized. Next up, we have the Galleon light tank, the 100 and 200 variant. My personal preference is the 200 due to its greatly increased armor protection. This is essentially a medium laser on a stick that you can drive at your enemy at 6.9 speed. It's not particularly tough. Having tracked movement does help it a lot to prevent immobility, but having the machine guns in the right and left side is problematic. It's going to make it pretty hard to line up shots with all of your weapons at once. And I would have preferred to see a couple of points of armor come off of the turret and go onto the front and right and left sides so that we have a nice 15 armor distribution on everything. Maybe take some points off of the rear to make that happen. Overall though, the Galleon, pretty good for what you get. Very cheap, reasonably mobile. Okay, let's look at a tank that has some actual bite here. We're talking about the AC-2 carrier. This is a 60-ton heavy tank for 400 battle value. It's got tracked movement, so it's kind of alright at not getting immobilized. Not that that really matters, because only having 12 armor on each side means that it's gonna get killed pretty quick. But we have 5 AC-2s, all front mounted. It can kind of just find a nice perch somewhere, preferably in light woods, and rain down AC-2 shots on the enemy, crit seeking, head seeking, whatever you are trying to do with this thing. It gets a lot better in later eras once you can load this up with precision ammo, but you can also use it as an anti-air unit with some flak ammo in earlier eras. With this much ammo loaded into this vehicle, it's great at carrying those alternate ammo types. A lot of people don't like the AC-2 carrier because it's so squishy, but when you can safely fire from beyond LRM range, this can pretty easily hide in the rear of your formation without getting into trouble. Alright, let's look at two little light tanks that basically both serve the same function. We have the Skulker wheeled scout tank, 20-tonner, 319 battle value, 18 armor all around, SRM-4 in the front, 2 tons of ammo, able to bring some Inferno rounds if you want to try and burn out some infantry or heat up enemy mechs. 711 wheeled movement means that it can generate 4 TMM, really nice to have. And then we've got the Skulker on a budget, which is the Darter. It's exactly the same tank, except you cannot bring Infernos unless you want to bring only Infernos. And it has about half the armor, which is pretty noticeable. Still 10 on the front means that it's pretty likely to survive a PPC hit from the front arc. And unlike the Skulker, this carries a cargo capacity, so it can carry 1.5 tons of cargo, which is not a lot, but you really can't argue with the battle value cost here. And you might find that the Skulker's extra armor doesn't actually help that much when you get immobilized from a side shot instantly in the first round. Next we have the ultimate ambush predator, the engineering vehicle AC. This is literally just an AC-20 that will fire exactly once. A 5.8 tracked vehicle means that it can generate 3 TMM, making it pretty annoying to shoot with big weapons. 423 battle value is supremely cheap for an AC-20 on a stick, and it has enough internal structure and armor combined that it can survive exactly 1 PPC hit without instantly dying, although you're going to take a critical, and if it hits the magazine, the vehicle's dead anyways. Alright, next let's look at a couple of hover tanks. We have the Heavy Hover APC. If you want to bring some troops to the front real quick, the Heavy Hover APC is where it's at. Front-mounted machine guns and SRM-4 makes it have a pretty decent punch for something that only costs 270 battle value, and 20 frontal armor means that it's able to take a couple of big hits before going internal and dying. 3 tons of troop capacity is plenty for bringing a couple of squads to the front, and 812 hover movement is just super solid. Overall, out of the transports that we have looked at on this video, I think that this is probably the best. It's able to maintain 4 TMM pretty healthily and has a decent punch while also having a decent troop capacity. Now let's look at the cheapest tank in the game pretty much that's actually useful, the Skimmer. This is a really small light hover tank with insane movement. 1726 hover movement is absolutely ridiculous. It basically just teleports across the map wherever it wants to go. It can take exactly only one SRM on the front or sides and can't even take a single SRM to the rear. It's armed with a single small laser and a flamer in the rear, so it can fire at things in front and behind it, and costs 86 battle value. This tank is so incredibly cheap. That is absolutely ridiculous. Next up, the more commonly known extremely fast spammy hover tank, the Savannah Master. 10 armor on the front means that this actually can take a hit. A medium laser, also front mounted, means that its weaponry is reasonable. It can fire at like range 6 pretty accurately. And it's still fast enough that it can pretty much go wherever it wants. But at 215 battle value, you're paying almost the cost of 3 Skimmers for every 1 Savannah Master that you take. So take that into account when you decide to run the Savannah Master. The Hipparch cavalry tank is one of my favorite cheap hover vehicles with just enough armor that it can comfortably take a PPC and SRM hit on any location. 914 movement, very quick. 382 battle value, super reasonable, and a bristling arsenal for something of this size and cost. Medium laser, small laser, and an SRM2, all mounted in a turret, meaning 360-degree fire arc, so even if you get a motive crit and get immobilized, you can still fire your weapons in any direction. So the Hipparch cavalry tank, just overall super solid for its cost. I would absolutely recommend throwing a couple of these into a force if you're looking to spend your last 1,000 or so battle value. Put them to 4 piloting and you won't have any regrets. Next up, we have the Harasser missile platform. This is a very fast, light hover tank. Let's start with my least favorite. The Harasser missile platform, original variant, 413 battle value, 1015 movement, 5 armor everywhere except the rear, which is 4. Really insufficient in my opinion. You need more armor than this on a hover tank that you're spending over 400 battle value on. Twin SRM6s though is pretty nasty, and with 2 tons of ammo you can bring Inferno with that, which is pretty sweet. Next we've got the LRM version, which adopts a very different approach to things. This vehicle either wants to drive somewhere safe, hiding behind cover and indirect fire from long range at, say, range 14, or it wants to drive around the battlefield and be a distracting little jerk, getting behind your enemies and firing that LRM-10 into their rear. Either way, it's more heavily armored, which makes me like it more. Finally, my favorite of the bunch, the Harasser missile platform flamer version. This guy has a vehicle flamer, which means that you can load this up with some fun stuff. Something that some people don't know is that you can load this with acid, which is pretty annoying to deal with, and paint, which unfortunately doesn't actually work in Megamech, but can cause some significant penalties to enemy shooting. This is the most armored variant of the bunch, 8 armor on every location, meaning that it can take a large laser hit before going internal, and has exactly enough armor and structure to take a PPC shot without being destroyed completely. With 10-15 movement, you can very comfortably maintain 4 TMM, and it still has decent firepower. 2 SRM4s is not bad. You can take some Inferno ammo with that to heat up enemy units, and the vehicle flamer is just a nice flexible weapon that you can use for various applications. Of course, I couldn't forget about our boy, the Scorpion. There's 4 variants of the Scorpion that I like. We have 373 battle value for the SRM Scorpion. 12 SRMs is a lot for 373 battle value. 16 armor on the front, 16 armor on the torso, 10 on the rear, 11 on the sides. So this unit, on average, can take maybe 2 to 3 medium lasers and a PPC shot before being destroyed. One thing that I don't like is it carries a little bit too much ammo. This thing is going to get exploded really fast. I would have rather seen 1 ton of this SRM6 ammo get put into armor instead. That would have been perfectly acceptable. Of course, it would have increased the battle value pretty significantly. I'm not as big of a fan of the medium laser version. It is 53 battle value cheaper, which is nice, but it only has 2 medium lasers instead of 2 SRM6s. This is a lot less deadly overall. Now, the classic Scorpion is only 306 battle value, extremely cheap. It can use the AC-5 to stay at range, and in later eras can take precision ammo to make this actually a pretty annoying weapon to deal with. Finally, let's look at the very best version of the Scorpion, in my opinion, the LRM Scorpion. If you're looking for a cheap, tough LRM platform, the Scorpion light tank is it. It gets a little pricey, 425 battle value, but it brings 15 LRMs to the table and enough armor to tank some serious enemy firepower. We're talking 2 PPC hits to the front before this thing goes internal. Same to the turret, and the sides can easily take a medium laser and PPC hit. It's gonna go internal, but it'll still live against that. So it's a reasonably mobile, very cheap LRM platform with decent armor. This is gonna be reasonably hard for an enemy light mech to just get behind your forces and take this out. Out of all these super cheap tanks that have actual, real, practical applications that you will want a tank to fulfill, the Scorpion light tank LRM is probably the best. Did I miss any of your favorite cheap tanks? Please leave them in the comments below. Remember, this is under 500 battle value. We will be covering some more premium tanks in an upcoming video very soon. Thank you so much for watching, Mech Warriors, and have a great day.